up, guys? Welcome back to DRZ Productions. It has been a hot minute since we have made a video. For today's video discussion, I got Carlos with me.
Hi everyone.
So it's been a while. The last video we made, I believe, was on our 249 that we decided to paint. This was back during the beginning of all the coronavirus stuff. So it's been a while. We haven't had a chance to play for that reason, and now we're going to go ahead and jump into a new topic. So for today's video topic, we decided we're going to talk a little bit about HPA. HPA stands for high pressure airsoft. Basically what it does is instead of using your average electric airsoft gun, you now can run your airsoft gun off of high pressured air.
You said high pressured airsoft.
That's what it is. That's
what it stands for. High pressured air.
So why we're making this video is because recently me and Carlos of our group are the only two who decided to make the switch to HPA. There are some general reasons why we decided to make this switch. You want to go over some of your reasons?
Well, originally, I had a gate tie-in in my gun, and it was nice, but it kept on eating through the batteries like really fast. And then, I came to problems with stripping teeth on a piston and some stuff like that. But after some time, he originally made the switch, and then I came about it and I said, why not? Let's send it and see how I shoot. And I've enjoyed it so far.
So for me, I made the switch to HPA. I was the first one of the DRZ channel to make this switch. And this is because I'm the one that's usually teching the guns. I'm usually doing all the repair work for all my friends. The gun gamers I do the repair work for. And I got so tired of taking apart gearboxes for the same exact issues, the same exact mechanical problems. Stripped pistons, blown out gears, fried motors. I got sick of it. And I didn't want to deal with the mechanical issues of using an electric airsoft gun anymore. And when HPA came out, I was a little iffy about it because I didn't fully understand the system. I didn't fully understand how it worked.
Hey Airsofters, we're going to be talking about the Polar Star. Good friend Lauren here. Fusion engine. Uses solenoids powered by a HPA remote rig.
Once I dove into the actual overall topic of HPA, I decided I wanted to make that switch. And at the time HPA was starting to become popular, I couldn't even afford it. Yeah, your first Fusion engine that came out was probably $500, $600. I think the Gen 1 Fusion engine. And luckily a buddy of mine, Ian Leary, was like, hey, I got this Fusion engine, I'm not using it, I'll give it to you if you continue to do tech work on my AEGs for me. So the irony in the situation, I go, okay, I'll continue to do work on AEGs if I can get this free, Fusion engine. So I ended up getting a EMG brand. It's a Polar Star Fusion engine Gen 1, but it's EMG painted. It's got the blue logo, American flag on the side of it, branding. I don't know what the difference is. They all perform the same. And I put that in, I've swapped it for many different guns of mine that I've had over the ages. I think the past 3 years it's been like 3 different guns. But I decided to make the switch because I got so sick and tired of working on AEGs. I was dumping more money into it than it was worth. And I was like, finally, I want the reliability of a pneumatic system that just doesn't shit out every game I play. So that's how I got into HPA.
But how do the HPA system, how does it actually work?
So an HPA system, it works off what's called a pneumatic system. Pneumatic, that's spelled with a P. Basically, HPA works with an air tank to use as your power source. You're using high pressured air to push the BB, out of your hop up down your barrel. Pretty simple, similar to a gas gun. However, there's a whole computer system inside of it's shaped like a gearbox. Your HPA system is shaped like a gearbox, or it's a drop-in unit. And there's a computer system powered by a battery that controls a servo valve. It opens and closes based on the computer when you pull the trigger to either release the airflow or cut it off. And for that reason, you can get more power behind the BB, you get a more standard velocity as the BB goes down the barrel, and you're going to get much more overall function. It gives you the ability to alter and change different things in your gun. A good example of this is if you have a computer in an HPA unit, you can control your rate of fire, you can control your trigger pull, you can control all these different modes, your FPS, you can control using your air tank, using a regulator on your air tank. So it's not just for the reason of you don't have to do tech work on gearboxes anymore, it's you have full control over the performance of your airsoft gun now. you can do whatever you want before you go to a game. So you don't need to worry about springs or if the FPS is too high. If you're out in the field and you're shooting too hot at chrono, you can just turn it down on your valve. It makes life so much easier.
Depending on the regulator, you know, this one has a turn down for your FPS. Well, PSI, how much output input it's going through. Mine has what on the side?
Yes. So back to how a HPA system works. The actual system goes inside of the gun. It's going to replace your gearbox, or it's going to go inside of an original electric AEG gearbox. From there, you're going to have a hose that goes to the system. This is because your air's got to go up the hose, back into a tank, to a regulator. And then somewhere in the gun, you also need a battery that you have to hide somewhere to power the actual pneumatic system. This way, you get full control over it. And then usually there's a little CPU or computer chip that you can alter or change to get your different rate of fires, your different poppet valve timing. That's what I'm looking for, your poppet valve timing, yeah.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of science in there. It's a little confusing to explain, but that's the actual mechanics of the HPA system. So in my gun, I have a Polar Star fusion engine, and Carlos's gun, he has a Polar Star jack unit. What the difference is between that is the fusion engine is shaped like a gearbox itself. It's a complete V2 system. It's completely designed to just replace the gearbox entirely of any V2 airsoft gun. Drop it right in, it's ready to go, plug and play system, and you're good to go on the field, and that's about it. A little bit more pricey though than a Polar Star jack system, which you can pick up for around $360.
I think I got mine for $350.
The difference is a jack unit, that's another form of HPA, is you can drop it into an AEG gearbox. You remove all the gears, all the guts of that electric gearbox, and you plop it right on in.
Places.
Just like mine, it goes right down, you know, your handle. You can even have this hose go anywhere outside of the gun if you want to. You just gotta, you know, you gotta do some drumming if you want to do custom stuff like that.
Yeah. I do some of that.
But it's a cheaper version of HPA, but it does the same exact thing as this. This was a $500 HPA system. Carlos paid $375, $360 total.
Yeah, with tax, but
Does the same exact thing, and I think his air efficiency is actually better than mine. Personal pros and cons. Okay, so we can go on a little bit into the pros and cons of an HPA system, because this isn't necessarily saying that all HPA rifles are better than AEGs. There are some AEGs out there that perform just as well as an HPA rifle. Some of the Umbrella Armory's guns out there with DSG motors, I mean, you're going to drop $1,200 on it, but they're about the same performance as you're going to get from an HPA rifle.
Well, I mean, even with HPA rifles, just because you have an HPA system in it doesn't mean the accuracy of the barrel will also be the same, or the hop-up unit. You also could, you know, change those out to get better performance.
So the only thing, when you put an HPA system into your gun, the only thing that you're going to change is the mechanics of your nozzle and the flow of air going down your barrel. Everything else in your gun, your hop-up system, your barrel choice, your feeding of your mags, that's all going to remove.
Also your bucking.
Your bucking, yeah, your bucking. That's all going to stay the same. That is meat from your AEG that's going to continue to stay the same.
Unless you decide to change it out.
Unless you decide to change it out.
Which, I mean, both you and I have.
Yeah, we've done it. We got upgraded barrels in our HPA rifles.
You have units. Maple Leaf? No.
Mad Bull with the Maple Leaf bucket.
Yep, there you go. And I just have Mad Bull tight bore with, I think, a Crytek. I don't know.
Crytek Orange, maybe?
Something in there.
Crytek Orange bucking. One of the things I want to address is another pro of switching to HPA is it eliminated problems with maintenance, such as, like I said, you're eliminating an entire gearbox.
Yep.
So if you were having feeding issues, accuracy issues, compression issues before switching, you put that HPA system in there, you're eliminating like 20 different things. Now you can focus on just your hop-up unit, your feeding, your bucking, your barrel.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you have to worry about, and from there on you can adjust and figure out, you know, how you want it to be. If you're hopping up too much, hopping low too much. There's less factors involved that you have to put into possibility or consider if you're having issues with your gun originally. So if I'm having an issue with this, I know it's only going to be like one of 5 things, because your whole pneumatic system is never going to have an issue. It is built solid. It's designed so that it's not going to fall apart or break. It's all just one good system.
So what are your personal pros and cons for switching over to HPA or HPA in general?
So I have a lot of personal pros and cons because it's a whole huge subject.
Yep.
So I love HPA because in terms of airsoft, the efficiency is so much better than I personally think efficiency-wise it's the future of airsoft. You're gonna get so much better efficiency than AEG, but the problem is people abuse this power. There's a lot of people switching to HPA. There's a lot of power behind these suckers. It's easy to cheat with HPA. It's easy to mess with your regulator and cheat on the field and get 600 FPS or something ridiculous if a ref isn't looking or to tinker.
Or I mean, since they've really gone to joules.
Yeah,
before they were just focusing on FPS, and your FPS could still be 300 FPS, but
with like a crazy joule rate,
But that was back then. Now
back then
most fields are starting to
better,
conform to joules now.
It deals with the player too. A lot of people who get into HPA, there's a lot of younger kids that are getting them easier. It's more accessible now that they're getting cheaper. The units are getting cheaper, and for that reason, you'll get a lot of people overshooting with them, cranking their ROF up to like 45 rounds per second, which is completely unnecessary. And you get miserable players on the opposite receiving end of a Polar Star. That's what happens. You'll see all those cheat videos on YouTube, kids getting hurt by them. And it's a huge issue. I see it at my local field all the time where people with HPA tend to play a little bit more aggressively because they have the upper advantage over AEGs. Mm-hmm. And it became so much of an issue. People were shooting too hot, kids were complaining so much that I think our local field actually had to bring our HPA limits down. They restricted it to below 1 joule now, I'm pretty sure.
And you cannot shoot full auto with them.
And you can't shoot full auto because 45 rounds a second, that's insane.
I mean, even before they made the choice to keep it semi-only for Polar Stars, they still had
we went to semi.
Requirement.
So even on semi, you can do this with the AEGs, but it's not as sensitive or accurate as it would be with an HPA rifle. Hair triggers.
Yep.
Hair triggers are such an issue with HPA because it's like, you say, your field says, oh, we're going to restrict it to semi-auto only, but like even on mine, I have a hair trigger, and I could easily get maybe like 15, 20 rounds a second if I really tap my finger fast enough, and it can become an issue. Yeah, so there's definitely a small issue going around where it's responsibility with using HPA and how to just play as a decent player and not just treat everybody like complete trash on the field, And we didn't make the switch to play like scumbags with HPA rifles. We switched mostly for the efficiency part of it because we're tired of the maintenance.
Me, I just want...
You're very competitive, I know. Yeah.
So, not just because I'm competitive, I made the switch because I could definitely outshoot. I'm not saying
you get more range on it.
I could outshoot than the average with HPA, but even when I had my old setup in this, with my gate tie-in and high torque, Tokyo Maruti motor, I still was getting pretty much the same range, maybe shy of 8 feet. Mm-hmm. Either way, I mean, I love them both, but HPA I think takes the win because this is so much lighter. All the rest
another pro of HPA is depending on the system you choose to buy, you're reducing a lot of weight on your actual airsoft gun. Mine's still pretty hefty and beefy because I got all this
nonsense.
This is all set up for night vision stuff.
You're good, I saved your life. Yep.
So there's a lot of nonsense going on here with the SIG. But Carlos is very light because he's got a jack unit in here, which is way lighter than the original Fusion engine. And he's got all this lightweight stuff on here, so it allows you to be quicker and faster too if you switch to the system. There's less drag, less resistance having to carry it around.
Oh, you want to talk about faster though?
For that exact reason, that's why speed softers love using HPA.
And there's also no lag with the motor and all the gears too. I mean,
instant trigger reaction.
Yeah, you get instant. I mean, don't get me wrong, gate tie-in has pretty good at
you get an AEG that's modified, you can get pretty good reaction,
But I mean, how long have we spent on the my own AEG? Mm-hmm. Just imagine how long we spent on that to get it to where it was versus dropping the Polar Star in there. And
something that took us 3 days to do with an AEG took us 30 minutes to do setting up an HPA gun. maybe less than that.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably had it in 20 minutes. So
I mean, and it shoots as good as putting all that unnecessary stuff in.
you would put into an AEG.
Yeah.